I think these are an incredibly important, group of amendments, and we do have to restate what we're talking about here is the devastating impact on human health of noise, which is a serious problem around the globe, and a problem recognised by the European Union as one which has estimated to cause between 30 and 50,000 premature deaths every year across the EU. And to deal with that and the chronic health implications of it, the key, directive or measure of dealing with that is the Environmental Noise Directive. And in response to us raising the need to have the WHO guidelines in this, the Minister's answer is basically, don't worry about it, lads, it's already there. Because this directive is anchored in the directive, it will be updated as the regulation is, and we don't need to specify it. And in fact, points were made saying that there's a technical reason as to why you can't specify it, that the directive has to be copied down. Now, I don't buy that, and we need to be more specific in regard to this. Now, when we had the briefing subsequent to committee stage, which a number, although unfortunately not everybody, attended to it and might be fully up to speed, but we did attend the briefings, and thanks to the department officials for organising those briefings. But in answer to the point of don't worry about it, the health impact is already covered, the first reason given as to why we should be reassured was that, look, it's there in point 11 of the recital of Regulation 598, but recitals do not have the same legal effect as the body of the regulation and the directive itself. So relying on a recital actually doesn't give any legal comfort at all. And it was the understanding, Robert is right, that at committee stage there was a general agreement that some formula of words would be taken into account that would give effect to the WHO regulations. Because in fairness, I think science, our understanding, and anybody dealing with this area knows that that's the direction in which we need to be going. Why would we adapt something that's outdated, if you like, Now, an issue has been raised by residents. I don't think it's, I'm not sure whether it's accurate or not, but you might want to address it as well. Clarity does need to be reached. There's a belief that needs to be explained that the Minister's amendments, which include a reference to Statutory Instrument 549, is an attempt to water down or delay the application of any updating of the European Environmental Noise Directive of 2002. That point is out there. I think the Minister needs to address that situation. The fact that we are relying on your words that the WHO criteria is there isn't really good enough. Now, you might explain as well the excuse given that, look, when we're transcribing a directive here, we have to go about it in two ways. If the directive refers to a member state, it has to be done in a certain way. If it refers to the competent authority, we have a certain leeway. We had to debate at committee, you can include or exclude, or you have to cover the regulation by the letter of the law. So I think you need to deal with that, because my belief is that we, as a member state, are absolutely entitled to specify the criteria that the competent authority will be operating. And in that sense, I have two amendments in this group. My second amendment at 85 is just requiring actually that the competent authority would be directed to ensure that average night exposure is reduced below 45 decibels and average and night noise exposure below 40 decibels, such levels to be revised in accordance with the WHO guidelines. Now, I want you to deal with this, because my reading of the briefing we got from your officials, my insertion of this at that part of the bill is not in contradiction to anything that we're entitled to do. The fact that actually it hasn't been ruled out of order is a verification that that's the case. So if we're all saying they're the criteria, let's put it in the legislation. We can put it in to this one. And why would we expect our citizens to have to endure anything less than best practice that's out there now? And best practice is those levels. I think it's interesting to note that this isn't just us saying this. Even if you look back a number of years ago, 3 years ago now, into some of the correspondence that's been released in relation to even Fingal County Council, who we'll come to in a little while, in their deliberations of the inner and outer noise zones in relation to Dublin Airport, as far back as 2016, and this is in correspondence between some senior planners in Fingal, they refer to the discussions that were going on at that time with the WHO, which they said 3 years ago was expected to be published soon. They talk about lots of evidence about how there can be adverse health impacts, and as such, the WHO should be considered. When it's published, it should be taken into account. So we just want to ensure that. So if the answer is, oh, well, everybody wants to ensure that it's definitely covered, why can't we specify it? And the objections, the technical drafting objections, which were used at committee stage as to why we couldn't insert it in the area I inserted it at committee stage, in my opinion, are overcome by where I'm inserting it now. In my second amendment in this grouping, amendment number 85, where I deliberately specify that point. I think it's absolutely critical. Isn't it criminal that we're here in 2019 when we know that the noise directive at European level, the new guidelines at that time were revised and amended by the World Health Organization in 2009. 10 years ago they talked about these levels, and there's people who will have to go home tonight and who are being offered buyouts, paltry buyouts and inadequate insulation to endure levels way beyond that. It's absolutely not good enough. We need the WHO guidelines specified in it. There's no contradiction. And if what you're saying is it's already covered, well, grand, no harm done then in us specifying it.